and welcome to Frame.io Live. Today is your fast track to Frame.io success. My name is Ryan. I'm an enterprise customer success manager based out of New York City. Really thrilled to be joining you today to go through an entire end-to-end workflow of how to use Frame.io. If you are brand new to Frame.io, welcome. If you are an existing user, really thrilled to have you joining me back here again. But over the course of today, we are going to be creating a project, uploading some content together. We're also going to chat a little bit about ways that you can organize your account. We're certainly going to go through an entire review and approval process, including leaving some comments, sharing out for review, and discuss some of the differences between them. But with that said, I'm going to be using this comment section as we go along throughout the course of today to drop in some support articles that just reinforce a little bit about what I'm speaking about. So whether you're watching this as pre-recorded content, or you also just wanted to have some resources on hand to share with the rest of your team, keep an eye out for those. But please use that comment section if you have any questions along today as well. One of my favorite things about this session is that it gets to be a little bit interactive. Hopefully we could have some fun together today. So if you have any questions or anything comes up over the course of today's session, please let me know and I'll make sure that I get to them. But with that said, I would also love to hear where you're tuning in from. So feel free to drop in the chat now where you're tuning in from, just so I can say hello. But I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. We are completely web-based. So I'm just here during or under the URL app.frame.io. We also have an iPad app and an iPhone app for iOS as well. So you certainly can access Frame.io from any of those places. But if you're brand new to Frame, this is your first time hearing about us, you just got an account started, we are a secure cloud-based review and collaboration workflow management tool. So we are built to help you manage video projects from the pre-production process all the way through to post-production and distribution. Susan from NYC, welcome. Thanks for joining. Hopefully you are staying dry today. But what you're looking at here on my screen now is my Frame.io instance. So as a brief tour, starting on the left-hand side, we'll work our way over to the right. I'll just explain what you're looking at. I have a couple of different tiles here. We call this our account tile switcher. So you may or may not have different tiles available depending on how many accounts you're a part of. So for example, if you are a team member on one, but a collaborator in a different account, you can use your same email address, but just click back and forth between those accounts with some ease. Over here, you're also going to see the name of your account. If you're an enterprise customer, you may see this search bar here, or an inbox rather, where you're able to actually see any content that's been shared with you. The search bar will enable you to search for any assets that are within your account. Directly here beneath that, you're going to see a list of what we call teams. So you can see I have my creative services, Frame.io live series, even a summer campaign. If you're an enterprise customer, you can create as many teams as you would like, just to enable some of that scalability. Depending on your account role, even just creating one team could be a great way to get started. That's kind of the highest level of organization that exists within your account. John from Denver, welcome. Happy to have you on the call today. But then within each team, for example, my Frame.io live series, I then will have projects. So projects will always live within teams. And then within those projects is where all of your media and your assets will be housed, and ultimately what occupies your account storage. You can see a tab up here specifically for media. That is then where all of my media is housed here. You can see I have a couple different folders with a couple of different file types. I'll get to that more in just a bit. I also have an option up here for my review links tab and my presentation links tab. So that's where I'm able to manage any content that I've shared out externally. And then C2C connections, that stands for camera to cloud connections. So any hardware that I have synced up with my Frame.io account would enable me to have any of that content drop directly into my Frame.io account the second that I call cut. But this is where I'm able to manage any hardware that's synced. Moving over to the right-hand side, this will give an overview and a snapshot of which individuals are a part of your workspace. So going all the way from collaborators up, you're able to see a full list of individuals that are here. This is where you're also able to add in collaborators, which are added exclusively at the project level. I then also have the option to share out. I can also do new file upload, also create a new folder or a new private folder. I also can see a snapshot of how much content is being utilized within this particular workspace. First, let's create a project together. If I were to guess right now, you're probably trying to consider, well, what's the best way I could actually organize my content? Any project that you create, any team member will automatically have access to it. So if you're thinking about, well, I want to make sure the right people have access, you could organize your projects based on the stage of development that you're in. You could do it based on maybe individuals that need to see it. Really, however you choose to organize your content is up to you. There's no right or wrong way to be able to get that going, but would also like to highlight the fact that creating those projects can just add an extra layer of organization and a space where media can be housed. So let's create a project here. I'm going to click this plus button just to the right of the name of that team. Then I'm going to get a couple of questions as to what I want to do with this project. I would also like to highlight that the projects that you create by default, they're secure within your account. So the only people that have access to them are the ones that you actually give access to view those specific projects. But you do have the option to make those projects either public or private, meaning that you can invite specific individuals in as opposed to allowing them to join. So let's go ahead and name this project something like Summer Campaign 2024. And then anybody on this team can view this project. So I can make this public or I can make it private. If it's private, it just means that there's an extra layer of security that admins will need to accept that invitation before people can actually access it. C2C connections, that's that camera to cloud connection that I mentioned earlier. This is where you're able to enable if you want media to be uploaded into a specific project. There's also an option for some Slack notifications. So if you wanted to be alerted via Slack anytime an action occurs within your account, such as new media being uploaded, new comments, that's entirely up to you. Speaking of notifications, there are a couple of other notification settings that you can put in place. Do you want email and iOS notifications if a new comment occurs, if new media is uploaded? You have a couple different choices. And then there's also some defaults for email and iOS push notifications for new project team members. So maybe you add them in a couple weeks after the initial creation. So once this project is created, then I have a completely empty space to be able to upload content and get to work, which then would enable me to leave comments and review and welcome in other team members as well. Okay, let's see. I got a question from Daniel. I'd like to see how you would create, let's say you get a new client and you want to create a project or a folder where you can control everything that the client can upload, but only you decide what. I think I'm understanding your question. So there's a couple different ways that you can manipulate who can actually access what. One of which is by making a project specifically public or private. So any individual who's actually uploading content will need to sign in into your account. So if you invite them in as a collaborator to upload content, they'll only see that individual project. So Daniel, one way that you could do that is you could just create a project that you only invite collaborators into. That role can upload content. They can't share out externally, but that kind of acts as an intermediary. A lot of freelancers typically will take up that collaborator role. So you simply could just create a project for those individuals. But something else that you could do is you do have the ability to also make either content or folders private within a public project. So for example, let's say this product shots folder, I wanted to make private. I could indicate that it's private, meaning that collaborators won't be able to see it, only team members and above. So that certainly could be one way to be able to limit the individuals who can actually see that content. I hope I got to your question. Let me know if not, and I certainly can add some additional clarity. But now that we have this project here with some open and empty space, I can simply just click upload files. So then I can go ahead and choose exactly where I want to upload content from. Oh, Daniel, of course, yeah, no problem. Glad I was able to get to your question. So from here, then I'm able to select any content that I wanted to upload, whether that's from my desktop or elsewhere. I also could go up here into the top right corner. There's an option for new, and I could do either a file or a folder upload. However, if I were to implore you to download an external app, we do have an app called the Frame.io Transfer app. This is certainly the easiest and quickest way to get content both in and out of your Frame.io account, including the ability to set up some watch folders. So I just bumped over into a different desktop just so it's a little bit easier to see. But you can see that this transfer app will mimic my folder structure that I have that exists within my account. So here's my teams, and then again with those projects within them, my drip ad project and my summer campaign, which is now completely empty. But like I mentioned, you can also set up a couple of watch folders. So if you wanted content to be auto uploaded from a specific location, you can designate that as well. Let's upload content into my drip ad project. I'm just going to go ahead and click upload here. And then I'm going to select some content that was on my desktop. I don't know if you could notice, but there's also some PDFs and some stills. You can upload a whole slew of different types of file types. We also now support the whole Microsoft Word suite. So you can upload PowerPoint presentations. You also can do Word files. So just making it a little bit easier to be able to manage all parts of the production process. But there's a couple things that happen when I actually go to import content into my Frame.io account. So the first is that the original files are being imported and saved into Frame. So you'll always have access to the original file if you need to download it or send it to somebody else. Additionally, we're transcoding and creating lightweight web and mobile friendly proxy versions of your content. So you can play it back from anywhere that you have access to Frame, whether that's in the web app or in our native apps for iPhone and iPad. I'd also like to highlight that you can upload content directly from your Premiere panel. We do have a native integration with Premiere, so it just makes it significantly easier to upload content from there too. But then the proxies are created in multiple resolutions, so you'll always be able to work as well even if your internet speed or your bandwidth isn't super optimal. So let's go ahead and head back over to my account. Remember, I uploaded it here into my drip ad campaign. So you can see now that there's kind of a mix of media here. And part of the reason why I did that was because I wanted to highlight your ability to move content around within your account. So although I put this into my project, we want to move it over into our summer campaign. I can move it, copy it, or duplicate it. So let's go ahead and just move all of our content over into a different space. So we want to add it into our summer campaign. Let's go ahead and move it. And then you can see here that now all of this content will exist successfully within that different project and that different space. So we make it easy for you to be able to move content around, but you also can create folders. I'd also like to highlight though that remember I did upload a folder that already had some stills associated. So any folder structure that you already have will be matched within Frame. Daniel, our transfer app should work for PC as well. It should be optimized for both. Good question. I did want to drop in the chat an article around the transfer app, so that should drop you to a location to be able to download. Oh. So like I mentioned, there's a couple of different things that you can do now with this content. You can move it, you could copy it, you could duplicate it if desired. Copying it will also move any comments that are associated with it too. So a couple of different ways that you're able to manipulate your data based on your specific needs. I can also create a couple of different folder types. I'm just doing a right finger click here, and you see I have the option to create a new folder or a new private folder. Daniel, to your point earlier, the private folder will not be visible to any collaborators, will only be visible to team members and above. So it could be a great way to make sure that your content is just being viewed by the right people. Let's say you created a project, you have both freelancers and regular team members in. You didn't want the freelancers to see any of that regular team member content. You can go ahead and make that content private and it won't be viewed. I did want to drop in the chat as well an article around moving media for your reference. But speaking of moving media, one of my favorite features and something that will save you a ton of time is a feature called version stacking. This just means that you can take any like assets, so like an MOV file, for example, and you can just drag and drop them over top of each other. I know that we are all guilty of having a ridiculously long email thread, not knowing which version is actually the final or which version exists where. So let's take these three assets, for example. I have my V1, my V2, and it looks like I have a final two. You could see right off the bat here that there's some differences between these three assets. This one's 34 seconds, this one's 28, this one's also 28, but some of the text and the coloring looks a little bit different. You could see that we made some edits and adjustments between it, but we want to keep them all together. So I could just simply take one asset and drag and drop it over the next, and it will create what we call a version stack. You can see here now that there's a little icon indicating that there's two assets that are associated. And then I could even take this third one and I could drag it over top, et cetera, et cetera. We could keep going with that process. So once I open up this version stack, I then have the option here at the top to select which asset I want to view, but I also can compare two versions side by side. So I can just put, for example, my V3 and my V2 right next to each other. And then let's bump on over in the timeline. I'm actually able to see both these assets Side by side, I also can A/B test audio. So if you have a different voiceover or different audio that's playing, you can click back and forth between the two, which is pretty cool. You can see that it was playing both those assets at the same time. I'm also able to see comments that are associated, or I can also get rid of them too if I simply just wanted to see these two assets side by side. So we call this both version stacking and the comparison viewer. You can do this with both video files, you can do it with audio files, you can do it with JPEGs. There's really a ton of options that exist here, really to aid in whatever part, whatever stage of approval and process you are in. And like most things in Frame.io, nothing is set in stone. The creative process is certainly not set in stone either. So we can go ahead and go over here to our version stack, and we can go manage version stack, and we can remove any content from there that we didn't want associated. So super easy for you to be able to edit whatever's there. Oh, John, it looks like you were asking about comments that were associated with the version stacking. Whichever asset you're clicked on at the top will show the comments that are associated. So you do have to click into that asset to actually be able to see the comments that are associated with it. Hmm. Did want to drop in the chat too an article around version stacking. Perfect. Every other week, I lead a session going into both the admin console, where we go back into the settings in the account. And then this week, so every other week, I'm then leading this kind of end-to-end workflow session. There is one thing from the admin session, though, that I did want to call out and highlight, which is just account users and kind of who is who within the accounts. One of the more common questions that I get is, well, exactly which users are which within the account? So let's go ahead and go back into the settings. If you're an admin, only you will be able to see this. So if you're not an admin, feel free to tune out. But any team that's created and listed here, I'm just under the users and teams tab here on the left-hand side. If you go up to team members, it's going to give you a list of every individual that's a part of your workspace. So if I'm a team member, I automatically have access to every project within a team. So this is where users are able to be invited in. And then you could also delegate if you want somebody to be a team manager or not, which would also give them some control to invite in users. However, if you are wanting to invite in collaborators, you do that at the project level. As a reminder, collaborators only have access to the content that's associated with an individual project. But those users are managed in this back panel under users and teams. Under this manage users option, there is an option for collaborators. And then I can see which individuals are part of which space. I can remove them. I also can see their last seen date. So if I was to remove this user, I would just delete them and then it would free up that seat within my account. But you could see here that it's also showing some of these individuals haven't been seen in a little while. So that could be a great way for you to be able to manage who is who within your account and if individuals no longer need a spot. Hey, Jeff from Idaho. Welcome. Hmm. If there's any questions about users or user roles, let me know. But if I was to click on this plus button as well, like I mentioned, it's going to give me a snapshot of all the individuals that are here. And if I type in and invite somebody here, it will automatically add them as a collaborator. If you're an admin, you do have the ability to change that user permission to a team member if desired. So it really just depends on how you want those users to be able to interact with the platform. Hmm. Let's chat a little bit now about the commenting and the review process. You can see here that there's a couple of comments that are already associated with this asset. Those are all going to go ahead and show up here on the right-hand side. Let's actually go to an asset that has less comments, so that way we can leave some together. So this asset here has no comments associated with it. So let's go ahead and start with this one. There's a couple of different types of comments that you could leave. So not only can you leave just a single comment, which will live on the timeline for that asset timestamped with that specific location, but you can also leave a range-based comment. So you can indicate with brackets from here to here within this space is what we want to edit and adjust. You also have the option to do a hashtagged comment. So you could hashtag a keyword. You also can do an at mention. So you can send somebody a direct notification that you are speaking directly to them in that comment. You also can reply directly to comments. Don't worry, I'll demonstrate all of these together. But looking at this player page and this player panel here, you can see that I'm within my version stack. So I could click back and forth between that version up here. There's also an option up here in the top in the middle where I can go back and forth between them. I've especially seen this be helpful with photo assets or any stills assets. I also can adjust the status up here. So we have a couple of different status labels that can be edited. I also can adjust the thumbnail so I can set the frame as well. I also can download any images as stills. But down here in the bottom, I have an option for play pause. I can loop. I can adjust the playback speed and the volume. Down in the middle too, I can adjust the time format depending on what you prefer to view. There's also this proxy version listed here that I mentioned at the time of upload, so you can select which proxy version you want to see. You also can add in some guidelines. So let's say you're working on a social media team and you want to determine something to upload to socials. You can add in those grids. Down here on the bottom is where I'm able to leave comments. I also can determine if I want it to go to everybody or just to my team, similar to the lock icon on like a folder, for example. I can limit who can actually see this content. So if it's team only, collaborators cannot see. And of course, I can leave annotations. So not only can I leave all of those comments, but I also have the ability to add in some color. I can also add in arrows, squares, some lines, and I can also free draw, add in an emoji if desired too. Let's go and leave a couple of comments together and show you what this review process could look like. So let's get started. So let's say for this shot here, I thought that we were going to have some type of brand partnership where there was going to be a logo on the ball. Obviously, that didn't happen. And let's go ahead and just inquire and see if we're going to add it in. So I could say, I'm just leaving a comment here. I'm just going to say I thought we had a brand partnership to add in a logo. I did want to indicate to my team exactly where I'm talking about. So I am going to select the arrow option right down here. Let's go and make it blue so it just stands out a little bit. And I'm going to just indicate that that's exactly where I wanted to leave that. I'm going to click send and then we can keep going. Okay, so I really liked that shot where it was kind of like zooming in from like to that specific individual. However, my only issue with it is that I think it's a little too long, like this whole section right here. So let's go ahead and leave a range-based comment indicating to our editors that we want to make it a little bit shorter. This is a 28-second cut, but I think we could probably cut it by half a second. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to this location specifically within my timeline. I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts, so I'm just going to hit I, which is going to start the bracket. We're going to another part here within the account. I'm just using my arrow key over to get to the very end of the portion that I wanted to get to before we went over to that extra shot. You can see that it's going to leave this range-based comment where then I can leave it here and say, can we edit this by 0.5 seconds on the front end? And let's say I wanted to indicate to a specific editor. I then could do an at mention and let's say April is the editor on this project. I could just indicate directly to April that this is what we want done. And then April is going to receive an email that I have left a comment to her. Let's go ahead and click send. Okay, I don't know if you can see here, but back here, there's like a part of the set design. Every time I watch this video, it bothers me. So let's go ahead and let our VFX team know that we want to get rid of it. So I'm going to go ahead and leave a comment here. Let's go ahead and get a square. Let's make it green. And I'm just going to indicate right here, there's a little part of the set that we wanted to get rid of. So I'm going to leave a hashtag this time, and I'm going to do hashtag VFX. Can we eliminate this in post? And we've already left that square so they know exactly where it's located. Let's click send. Oh, and it looks like there's another person in the back here. Let's go ahead and leave one more comment. I'm going to leave a square again, and I'm just going to say VFX. Can you look at this too? And this time I didn't do a hashtag. I'll explain why. I'm going to refresh here. I've just been doing a little bit of zooming in and zooming out, so that way we can see it in totality. Let's go ahead and change the status label too, and let's change this one to in progress, but let's review some of these comments together. So over here on the right-hand side, now if I was to click on these comments, it's gonna drop me to that direct location within my timeline with the annotations associated as well. But the cool thing about this comment section is it's a little bit more dynamic than just being able to see what people have written. But I do have the ability to also mark something as complete. So I could check it off the list here, indicating that this comment section really could be kind of like a checklist for your teams to be able to keep track of everything that's occurred. You also can reply directly to a comment. So let's say I'm a different user, I could reply and say, um, this is still in progress. We will add it once confirmed. So I just replied directly to a comment. I also could just like something and say, yep, I've seen it. I'm aware. I also have the ability to search for these comments. So I could do oldest, newest time code. I could see public or team only comments. I also can search for keywords. So you can see here that there's this little search bar. Remember, I hashtag VFX, but now anytime I'm searching for that keyword, it's going to show up. So even though I didn't hashtag it a second time, it's still going to show. I've seen accounts use this with legal terms, specific internal terms, really anything that you can imagine could just be a great way to be able to stay a little bit organized. There is the ability to download or see these comments. So if you click on this little download option, you can copy and paste the comments somewhere else. So you could put it on a different asset. You also could print the comments, which would actually just open up a PDF. You can see I just did that. So it's going to leave a full audit trail here for me of any comments that have been associated and at what time and by whom. I also can hide any completed comments. So like this one that's already done, boom, we could get rid of it. So a couple of different things that you can do and you can see right here within this comment section. Pretty cool. Any questions about commenting or kind of going through this process? Let me know. I'm dropping in the chat now an article around commenting for your reference. I know I mentioned that I like keyboard shortcuts, so I'm going to add in another article around keyboard shortcuts too. All right, I've added that. The last article that I'm going to add for this section is around exporting comments, which again is just another way to be able to keep that audit trail. Did want to pause here for just a moment and see if there's any questions before we move forward to talking about sharing. I'm not seeing any comments come through, but please interrupt me if there's anything that feels top of mind. So there's two different ways that you can share out within Frame. The first is a review link, and the second is a presentation link. The question that's worth asking when you want to know which one you actually want to share is, do I want individuals to comment back on the things that I'm sharing with them? So if the answer is yes, then let's go the review link route. I'd like to highlight that any review link that you generate and you share with somebody, that person does not take up a seat within your account. They only have the ability to then view what you've shared with them and do what we just did in that comment section. So they could leave all of those comments just like we saw and we did. So really could also inform exactly who receives a seat within your account. But let's say I wanted to share out our final. So we've already gone through some of the review and approval process for our version stack. Let's just share out the final version. So I'm just going to go here to the three dots and click share. I can do it here from this panel, but I also could open up the asset itself and click share. So looks like I have an asset that's not available. So let's share out our version stack instead. Let's do share and let's do share for review. Go ahead and refresh this page. Looks like there's a question about uploading content. You've been trying to upload for quite a bit of time. Oh, that's not good. But definitely check your internet bandwidth. I would also try to use the transfer app if possible. And if you're still having some trouble, it could be some type of corrupted file or something like that. So I would recommend giving our support team a shout, and they certainly could look and see if there's any issues. Shouldn't take too long to upload a video, especially one of that length. Let's go ahead and share out now for review. So once I actually go to share something, I refresh my screen, must have just had some Wi-Fi issues here. But I have the option now to choose if I want to give this link a name. So let's name this one Drip Ad. Final. From the sharing option, I have the link right here, but I have a couple different options that I can do with it. If you're an enterprise customer, you may see this invite only option. That means that it's a feature called secure sharing. This will require that a user signs into a Frame.io account. It won't take up a seat, but it just means that they're the only ones that can open it, the ones who receive that email. If it's public, it could still be shared along, so that invite only is just an extra security feature. But if I was to go to settings here, there is a couple of other settings that I can apply that will apply even if you're not an enterprise customer. But you could choose how your assets are viewed, oldest to newest, custom, date uploaded, name, size, status, comments. Under reviewer permissions, there's also a couple options what you actually want these reviewers to be able to do and how they interact with this asset. Do you want them to allow to download, comment, approve? And the show all versions pertains to that version stack. So I have the ability to share on an entire version stack, and I can show just the most recent edit, or I can show all versions. I can also apply a passphrase and a link expiration date. So let's go ahead and put a passphrase in place. Remind me if I forget. Let's just make it 123 for my own help, and then we can add a link expiration date too. It's Wednesday. Let's go ahead and go with Friday at 5 p.m. That's going to be local to wherever your settings are set to. And then if you're an enterprise customer, you also can apply a watermark. So this pertains to any externally shared out watermarks. You can see here that I have a couple of templates that I've created, including my summer campaign template, which we're going to use. But let's create a new one together. I can certainly add in all of this other content, name, email, IP address. That's all for the user who's viewing it. I also could add in some custom text. So you could name it the name of your project. You could name it the name of your company. Totally up to you. There's also a couple of size options for text, color. You could even change the opacity. You also can move this around anywhere on your screen. Right now, it's just text-based, but a couple of options that exist to accommodate whatever your needs are. Let's go back over to our summer campaign template, though. That's one that I created a couple weeks ago. We can use that. And then just like if you create one, then your users who are sharing externally have the ability to view it as well. I'm going to just share this one with myself for all intents and purposes. But then there's an option, do I want to notify these recipients via email? And do I want to add a message? Is that it's amazing? Because it is. And then I certainly could just copy and paste this, or if I click to add, it would auto send an email to those users. So once that link is sent, I can go here to my review links tab up at the top, and I can view all links that I've ever shared out. So you can see here's a full list of all of the review links that I've shared. You can see when it was created, by whom, if anybody's viewed it. You also can shut it off. So if you send something a little bit too preemptively, you can make that link turn off. Let's go ahead and open it up together. So I'm just going to go ahead and click open. My passphrase of 123. And then from here, I'm able to see this asset with the watermark applied and all comments associated. I gave permissions to be able to download and also change the status label. All of that is available here. If I was to just go back and view, this is exactly what that review link will look like. Let's go back over into my account. And let's say I wanted to add in additional content. I could click on the three dots here and go to add or remove files, which will allow me to just amend that existing link as opposed to have to regenerate a new link anytime I wanted to add another content. So let's say I wanted to also add in these product shots and maybe some logo designs. Once I click save, let's go back over into my review link. I'm just going to refresh this link, put in my passphrase, and you can see here that it's updated with those now additional components that I wanted to add in. So I've seen this be utilized for people that have their review links that all live within one specific location. I've seen it be where a link has only been shared with a client one time, and then edits have been able to be amended every time that there's new versions. Up to you how you choose to use that, but pretty cool that you can make edits and adjustments to an existing link. The presentation link will look a little bit different. Like I mentioned earlier, this is more of a static view where individuals can see the content that's been shared, but there's not the option to actually comment or leave a review. So you can see right off the bat that this actually looks a little bit different already. So within that folder, I wanted to send my approved photos. Let's see if we can send a different one instead. That has a couple of different assets associated. Here we go. So you can see here that this folder had a couple of different photos that are in it, and I wanted to share all of them with somebody. I could change the layout so I could have it be look like a blog where you have to scroll, or it could be a reel where individuals can sort through them. But you can see here that I actually have some branding options, so I can adjust the color that's associated. So let's go ahead and have this match that of our drip ad campaign. And you can see I just adjusted some of the accent, background color, and the text as well. But there's some options for autoplay or upload date. So I have some ways that individuals, again, will interact with this link. I have the choice to do an invite only or a public link like we did earlier. And then underneath the watermark, I can apply that too. So if I wanted this to be added into this asset, I certainly could. And then from a settings perspective, do I want to allow downloads, passphrase, or links, expirations? Up to you. Let's go ahead and share it with myself again. And let's go to our presentation links tab. From here, then I'm able to see I had uploaded this Capture One exports today, created by me with the same amount of people that have viewed it. Same thing. I can go right back over into this link and then I'm able to view it. You can see that I had added in my watermark, so that is associated and affiliated here with these assets, but a totally different experience for your viewers. So I did want to drop in the chat an article about review links and one more around presentation links. And then the last article that I wanted to share was about managing links. That was what we did where we went and we amended some of those already existing links. Perfect. I'm going to go back over now into my account, and this is just about wrapping up our session for today. I know that we've done kind of a major crash course. So we've created a project together. We've uploaded content and moved some content around. We also went through that review and approval process, and we shared out externally. Support doesn't end here, although I do lead these sessions once a week. We have a support team that's available 24/7. So up in the top right corner of your account, there's a little question mark up here. If you click on that question mark, it's going to give you a chat bubble where then you're able to see actually real individuals that are chatting right now, and they can certainly help point you in the right direction, whether your question is a little bit more remedial or something a little bit more complex. So this team is here to act as a support system as well. I know that I've mentioned some of the enterprise specific features, a handful of security features that I've mentioned, so watermarking, but we do offer single sign-on, secure sharing, multi-team support, a whole bunch of options if you're looking to scale or grow. You have some additional questions. I did just add a support article about enterprise. I did want to wait here for just a couple of minutes before we sign off for the day, see if there's any other questions that I could answer or anything that I could re-clarify. Please let me know if you need to hop. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hope this was a beneficial session. If you have any feedback, feel free to send us over an email. You can just reply directly back to the note that you'll get here in about 20 minutes. But if not, thanks for joining me. Cool. I'm not seeing any comments come through. So, on behalf of our entire team, I'd like to say thank you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope that this was a helpful way to get started and you learned something new. But thank you again. I hope you have a great rest of your day wherever you're tuning in from. I hope to see you again next week. Take care.